So now it comes down to building out my scenes into here, just to kind of start to group things, right? The whole point is to get organized. Now, before we start putting stuff into bins, what we're going to do is actually grab all that footage, and just because later on, if I choose to use multi-camera, which I will, I've got everything set up. So if I go to metadata, shot and scene, there's two things I'm going to fill out. One is the angle. Let's go matte, helmet, and then camera is also matte, helmet, right, hit OK. And then this one is Fern, helmet, whoa, same deal. So that's both of those, save that. And then I've got my other one, which is just handheld, cameras handheld. So we just set some metadata because when we create the multicam view later, it'll use that to see what cameras are what. And if they're labeled nicely like that, makes it 10 times easier. One, because it's going to link all those as being the same camera. So if DaVinci knows that it's the same camera by the name of it, then it will link them all together onto the same line. And then secondly, if we know which one it is, so when we're going through them, we can select a little more easily. Next step is then grouping all our content together. So there are two options here of how you want to do this. And I've used both. I like both. I just kind of just choose one or the other. But they are, you can either create bins and put everything into bins, or you can keep everything in the bins that they're in, and then use metadata like scene and so on to then find all the footage you want to find. So bins one is pretty obvious. All you would do is replicate what we have in here, in our storyline, into bins, right? And you can do that one of two ways. You can either then create bins separately to your media, like create a separate one, and then move, let's just quickly do that, right? So we've got all our camera footages there, but we might then go 01 intro, and then 02, to dirt, music, right, etc. Right, and then effectively you would just copy everything, basically everything that is there, copy into these folders like this, and so then everything that's in here, and then I'd probably do the same to Matt's ones, go through, find all his bits that relate to the same thing, copy them into there. So then I've got them mixed in with one another. I've got my stuff and Matt's stuff all mixed in there, and I can just pick and choose from that, right? So that's one way to do it, right? Which is, if you haven't got too much footage and you haven't got too many different cameras, that's probably the most simplest way to do it, right? I'm just going to undo that because that's not how I'm going to do it. I'm going to do something slightly different. Now, we're going to be able to do effectively the same thing. We're just going to use search instead of going into a bin. So what I'm going to instead do is grab everything that is scene one, the intro, which is just set up what's going on today. And I'm going to go scene one, save that. Now from here, we've got then getting to the dirt. So that's just this bit, and we just chat for a little bit. And then that's taking off, right? So that is scene two. Save that away. Then we've got here, we've got the dirt challenge, all this bit that's all freaking nuts. That's all that. That is, and I can even name this, right, just to keep track of things. So I know where I'm up to. 01, scene 4. I know this seems a little over the top, right? This seems a little, it's like, oh man, you could have finished editing by now. But trust me, it doesn't end up that way, particularly when you got a lot of footage and you got multiple cameras. If you just had one camera and you had limited footage, then we'd probably approach it differently, which we'll go through that as well. When we start to break down the scenes, we'll be breaking it down in that way. So we will get to that if that's the type of method you want to use. Now, you'll notice here, scene 4 actually kind of run out. And there's a reason for that. It's because my camera broke. Now I'm going to jump into and go to mats. So we've got here getting to, that's just getting to the dirt, and that's actually leaving. Okay, so that is scene 2. And this is then all the crazy scene 3 again. Save. So we're just going to do this for the whole thing. So then we're expecting all the other random stuff before we get to the causeways. Is scene 4. So you see there's a lot of stuff there, right? And we're actually going to probably ditch a lot of it. Probably, actually, now that I come to think of it, I'm actually going to need to do a voiceover for that bit. This is the thing, right? As you start to go through it, and if you keep this document here and you keep it up to date and you keep writing all these notes, then this is how you remind yourself all the things that you need to then do, and it just keeps you so much more organized. Because I don't have my camera, right? Normally I'm talking to my camera, but of course I had to take it off because the mount was broken. So I'm now gonna have to, do something different, right? Yeah, okay, so this is all getting to that. So Matt's got a little more stuff here. So I've actually kind of got a little scene in between. Even this is the hard call, right? This is the thing that you got to be able to do, is if there's too much, it can be the greatest footage in the world, but if it doesn't progress the story along, ditch it. All right, okay, so that's a good one. Okay, all right, here we go. So this is all going to be scene 4. So it's going to be pretty chopped down. Now, right here, we're making a decision whether to go this way or not. Is the causeway scene 5. All right, so that is all scene 6. Then I've got my max, and my max is all just scene 6. Stupidly didn't think until the end of the day that, oh yeah, I've got my 360, I could have put that on my helmet the whole time. Anyway, all right, so now that we've got all of that, I can then do a search, all bins, by scene 01. And that's everything from scene 1, scene 2, scene 3, scene 4, scene 5. Now, as I'm remembering this, we also took a lot of photos on the mobile. So I've got all those photos as well, which I'm going to now bring in too, and I'll include all that. I'll tag it with the right scene numbers, and then suddenly we've got all this other footage that we can compile in, and we're using that metadata to simply group everything and understand where everything is. Now, the final part of that setup is that we can also get a little bit more funky with this and go for each of these scenes, which ones am I actually talking to and which ones are just B-roll. So kind of from the length, I can get a bit of an idea that, by the duration here, this one is 1 minute, but am I talking? So that's just B-roll.
Adventures don't wait.
Right, and that's just, and I actually just break it into 3 kind of different things. One is story. Am I actually talking and telling a part of the story? Is it just chat and I'm just kind of saying something random, which is what this one is? Or is it just B-roll and there's no talking whatsoever?
Seriously, can't we just have one trip where it's not raining?
So I'll put that down as chat. It's kind of story, but it's not really. Turning up the Maccas.
This was a fantastic idea.
So again, just kind of chat.
This is what it's all about, hopefully.
So I'm gonna actually go talking, because that's, or story, you can call it whatever. I'll call it story, call it talking. That is actually, I'm just gonna use that as B-roll. I remember what I was saying there and it's not relevant. Now do the same for all the other scenes as well. So basically go through everything that's in there, and I can actually just grab up the keywords there and I can see what's in there. Now when I'm building out my timeline, I can then do a search and then go for, okay, I'm looking for 01, scene 01, and then keywords here. If I just want to pick up the talking bits, right, which are generally what I'm building that scene around, then I know that there's just 2 parts then for that scene. So the combination of scenes and keywords means that I can start to build out the timelines using those, right? So the talking bit is the primary bit and the B-roll is obviously secondary. So what I want to do is basically build my timeline. I've defined my timeline as being 3 minutes for that particular scene. So I'm going to grab those 2 talking bits, plonk them on the timeline, and then go, okay, well, I want to build that out to make that fit into the 3 minutes. And then I'll just grab my chat and B-roll bits, and I'm just going to fit them all around it, and just to fill in the bits and pieces, which then when we tie some music around that ties the scene together. And then that's where we transition from one scene to the next scene. That's it.